We're diving into a pretty tough story today about that 5-year-old boy who died in that hyperbaric chamber explosion in
Yeah.
Michigan.
Yeah, in Troy.
Right, in Troy, Michigan.
It was just so awful.
Really tragic, and we've got some news reports on it. And then you also pulled a medical explanation of these chambers from the Mayo Clinic,
Yeah, they have a really good overview.
and even a statement from the facility involved.
The Oxford Center.
Yeah, the Oxford Center. So I guess let's start by unpacking what we know about what happened,
Okay.
and then we can kind of get into like what these chambers are even all about.
Yeah, and how they're supposed to be safe.
Right, because that's the thing that's so crazy to me.
It's supposed to be a place for healing.
Exactly. You don't think
Yeah.
explosion medical facility?
Yeah, it's really scary.
So this happened at the Oxford Center, and like I said, a 5-year-old boy died, and his mother, who was with him in the chamber at the time, was injured.
Yeah, she was hurt too.
And so this wasn't just any medical facility.
Right, the Oxford Center specializes in hyperbaric oxygen therapy, which I know you're going to ask me about.
Well, yeah, because I don't really know what that is.
It's basically where they put patients in the sealed chamber, and it's filled with 100% oxygen.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and at like 2 to 3 times normal air pressure.
So it's like this really intense oxygen environment.
Exactly.
Wow. And so the Troy Fire and police departments, they're still investigating the cause of the explosion.
Trying to figure out what happened.
Right, and I guess this is where Dr. Christian Bogner comes in.
Yes.
He was the medical director at the Oxford Center.
Right, and he talked about how there were supposed to be all these super strict safety protocols. He said it was like airport-like security.
Oh, wow.
With tons of checks.
I mean, it makes sense if you're dealing with pure oxygen like that.
Exactly.
It seems like one little thing could go wrong.
And it could be disastrous.
So what kind of safety measures are we talking about?
Well, like one thing Dr. Bogner mentioned is that patients have to change into 100% cotton clothing.
100% cotton.
Yeah. Why is that?
Because of the Oh, is it flammable or something?
Well, even a tiny spark in a chamber filled with pure oxygen could cause a fire.
Oh, wow.
So they don't want anything that could create a spark.
And synthetic fibers can cause sparks.
Right.
So cotton is safer.
Much safer.
I guess that makes sense. I never would have thought of that.
It's all about minimizing that risk.
So it sounds like they really try to control everything.
Yeah, they try to think of every possible thing that could go wrong.
So then how could something like this even happen?
I know, that's what everyone's asking.
It's really strange.
I mean, hyperbaric chamber incidents are really rare.
They are.
I looked it up. There have only been like 4 reported globally since 1996.
Wow. So it almost makes it even weirder that this happened.
It does.
You would think if it's that rare, they would have everything under control.
You'd think.
And this isn't even the first time the Oxford Center has been in the news.
Right. They had that employee, Casey Diskin.
Oh, yeah, the one who got sentenced to prison.
Yeah, for stealing medical credentials and abusing kids with autism.
It's like, wait, the same facility had this explosion?
It's crazy.
It makes you wonder if something's going on there, like beyond just this one incident.
Yeah, like if there are deeper problems.
Right, because they put out this big statement about how committed they are to safety and how nothing like this has ever happened in their 15 years of doing this therapy.
But then this happens.
It almost feels like they're trying to cover something up.
It really makes you think.
So there are definitely a lot of unanswered questions here.
Yeah, a lot of things don't add up.
Like, what was the 5-year-old boy even being treated for?
Right, and what kind of accreditation did the Oxford Center have?
Yeah. Were they even allowed to be operating this chamber?
I mean, those are important things to know.
Yeah, we need to get to the bottom of this.
Absolutely.
And also, I think we need to talk about the therapy itself.
Yeah, like what is it and how does it work?
Right, because the Mayo Clinic says it's used for a bunch of different things.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting, actually.
Okay, well, tell me more about it.
So hyperbaric oxygen therapy is used for things like treating decompression sickness, which divers can get if they surface too quickly.
Oh, okay.
But it can also help with wound healing and boosting the immune system.
Really?
Yeah, and I've even heard of it being used for strokes, cancer, and autism.
Wow, that's a pretty wide range.
It is.
So basically, it's like you're getting this super dose of oxygen.
Yeah, and the idea is that it helps your body heal faster.
So on one hand, you have this therapy that could potentially help people with all sorts of conditions.
Right, it could really improve people's lives.
But then on the other hand, you have this risk of explosions and who knows what else.
It's like a double-edged sword.
Definitely. And I think it highlights how important it is to understand both the benefits and the risks of any medical treatment.
For sure, people need to be aware of both sides. It's all about weighing those risks and benefits.
Exactly. And I know you mentioned that it's used for all kinds of things.
Yeah.
So besides like helping divers and wounds and stuff, what else is it used for?
Well, they're looking into it for stroke treatment. Oh, really?
Yeah. So basically, a stroke happens when blood flow to part of the brain gets cut off,
Right.
and that damages brain cells.
And that's what causes the problems you see with stroke patients.
Right. So with hyperbaric oxygen therapy, the idea is to get more oxygen to those damaged brain cells.
So it's kind of like giving them a boost to help them recover.
Yeah, exactly.
Makes sense, but the brain is so complicated.
It is.
I mean, is there any proof this actually works?
Well, that's the thing. Some studies have shown good results, but others haven't been as positive.
So it's still up in the air. Kind of? So I guess more research is needed.
Definitely.
It's like with any new therapy, it takes time to figure out what works and what doesn't.
Right, and how to use it safely.
Speaking of safety,
Yeah.
how do these incidents even happen if this therapy is supposed to be so controlled?
Well, every case is different, but I think it's important to look at past incidents.
Oh, I like to see if there are any patterns.
Exactly.
Like maybe there are common mistakes that keep happening. Right, or maybe there are weaknesses in the safety protocols.
So it's not just about figuring out what went wrong in this one case
It's about learning from it.
and making sure it doesn't happen again.
Exactly.
And it makes you wonder about the Oxford Center.
Yeah.
I mean, they said they're all about safety, but then this happens.
And then you have that employee who abused those kids.
It's like, were they really taking safety seriously?
It makes you question their whole operation.
Like, were there any warning signs that they missed?
Right. Or did they just not enforce the rules?
Those are some pretty big questions.
They are.
It's scary to think that something like this could happen in a place that's supposed to be about healing.
It really is.
It's a good reminder that no system is perfect.
Yeah. And that we always have to be vigilant about safety.
And I think it also raises some ethical questions.
Oh, definitely.
Like, especially when you're dealing with vulnerable patients, like kids with autism.
Yeah. You have to be extra careful.
It's not just about the physical safety.
It's about their overall well-being.
Exactly. And making sure they're being treated ethically.
Absolutely.
I feel like we've barely scratched the surface here.
Yeah, there's so much to think about.
I mean, we talked about the good things this therapy can do.
Right, all the potential benefits.
But then there's this risk that just seems to come with it.
And all the questions about safety.
Yeah, like how do we make sure something like this never happens again?
That's the big question.
And it makes you wonder about all these new treatments and technologies in healthcare,
Yeah, are we moving too fast?
right? Are we putting innovation ahead of safety?
That's a tough balance.
Because on the one hand, you want to push the boundaries and find new ways to help people,
Absolutely.
but you also have to be really careful.
And make sure patients are protected.
And that's what's so troubling about the Oxford Center.
Yeah.
I mean, they had that employee who was abusing children.
And then this explosion happens.
It's like, are we doing enough to make sure these facilities are safe?
And that the people working there are ethical.
Right, because it's not just about the technology itself.
It's about the human factor.
Exactly. People make mistakes.
And sometimes they do things intentionally that hurt others.
It's a scary thought.
It is.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I guess the question I keep coming back to is this.
Yeah.
How do we weigh the potential benefits of something like hyperbaric oxygen therapy against the risks?
It's not an easy question.
Like, when does the potential for healing outweigh the danger?
I think that's something that needs to be decided on a case-by-case basis.
Right. You can't just make a blanket statement.
Exactly. And it's a conversation that needs to happen between the patient and their doctor.
So they can make an informed decision.
Right, with all the facts.
It's been a really heavy conversation,
It has.
but I think it's an important one.
Definitely.
And I want to thank you for helping us understand all of this.
It's been my pleasure.
This tragedy in Troy is a reminder that we can't take safety for granted.
No matter how promising a new treatment might seem.
We have to be vigilant
And keep asking questions.
because ultimately it's about protecting patients.
And making sure they get the best possible care.
That's what matters most.
Absolutely.